The economy and Brexit, the two are entirely connected. We have a fantastic, thriving economy here in West Berkshire with 0.8% unemployment, one of the lowest unemployment levels anywhere in the country, anywhere in Europe. And my determination is that we keep this a thriving, growing area, the best place to start and grow a business, the best place to employ people, good skills, and companies that want to come here from all over the world. And obviously hanging over that is making sure that we get the best Brexit deal that ensures that companies like Xtrac in Thatcham can still export its high-performance gearboxes competitively to France, Germany and Italy, that Edwards Life Sciences in London Road in Newbury can still export its world-beating heart valves all around the world, and that a company like Berenson in Hambridge Lane can still employ the people it needs in this service sector that it thrives in. So making sure that we have an economy that continues to grow and that is secure for the businesses and the people who work for them.
I think there's no doubt in anyone's mind that the biggest issue we have here in West Berkshire is the awful cuts to public services that we've suffered, and now the cuts to schools funding that are coming down the line. And these have all been caused by edicts coming down from the Conservative government. George Osborne cut the core grant to local authorities, and that's lost us millions of pounds that go into our frontline services, our care services, our mental health support and so on. This is wrong. This is a fundamental mistake by the Conservatives. The schools funding is another awful error. They're taking things too far. It's a step too far. I have never known head teachers write, as the head teachers of our local primaries did, to every parent to tell them they can no longer guarantee good education for their children in our schools. And I think that is a crying shame, a criminal shame. Liberal Democrats have fully costed plans to put £7 billion into the education system, to restore the per pupil funding and to triple the early years pupil premium. If you get it right when the kids are small, then that feeds through the whole system. If we don't get it right when kids are young, then secondary schools end up picking up the tab and the whole system crumbles. So I would say the biggest problem is funding, and it's funding cuts that have been made by the Conservative government.
In West Berkshire, as in the rest of the country, there's a crisis growing in the funding of social care. A crisis that won't be solved by the imposition of a dementia tax. Since 2001, the number of elderly people living in this district has increased by 23%, and over the next decade it's projected to increase by another 34%. This will mean another 8,000 pensioners living in our district, many of whom will need some form of care. Funding to provide dignity and help in old age is part of a civilised society, but panicky and ill-thought-out schemes will make matters worse. Nobody should have to face the eventual sale of a family home to pay for the bad luck of being old and ill. Labour will increase funding by £3 billion in the first year and build a consensus for a national care service. To end the lottery that may see many people in West Berks have to pay for their care with their homes. And we will stick by that pledge. The people in the area deserve a proper answer to the biggest issue facing West Berkshire, not a dementia tax and not spin.
The biggest issue facing West Berkshire at the moment is the risk of an uncontrolled, unquestioned Conservative government who only really seem to get their power from owning a media that shuts down any sense of viable opposition to them. The combined threats that we have seen already from a government that are challenging to housing, health, education, public service, mental health are really quite significant and really quite serious. And I think people in West Berkshire have shown that they don't buy into that view of what this area and our country needs to be. I think the way to solve that problem is to take power away from Westminster and to put a lot more back into local democracies, to engage people in the decision-making process and really address the issues in the way that is important and valuable to them. So I think enabling local people to decide how funding is collected and spent is the right way to address some of the issues and to challenge the real risks that this potential government has for us.
Well, I think the biggest issue for everybody, not just West Berkshire, is austerity. The fact that we have no money for the services we think we should provide as a society, let alone have no money for the things we desire as a society. And it's the whole reason I'm standing in this election, is to bring about awareness of the fact that we don't have to carry on the way we are. There's a strange system whereby government can only gain money to pay for services, either through taxation or, when the tax money's run out, borrowing money from the banks. The bit that people don't fully understand is that the banks, and when I say banks, I'm not talking about your high street branch where you pay in your cheques or set up your standing orders. The big glass towers in the City of London and on Wall Street, banks, when governments go to the banks and say we need to borrow money, the banks just tap a few keys on a computer and create that money out of thin air. It's a difficult concept for everyone to get their heads round, but that's effectively what happens. But then the government borrows that money, and we have to pay interest on it, and we have at some point to pay that money back. What I'm trying to bring about is a notion that we change who owns the money. The government own the money, and we can have money for our needs and desires. What we need to do is nationalise our money supply.